Hold on for the plane going overhead. I know you can hear that.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Random Considerations. In this episode, I'm actually going to be taking you outside because it is spring and it is the first time of the year to genuinely mow the lawn. I did have the honey mow it a little bit last week. It was tall in some spots, but this is like the first real mowing that the whole yard really needs. I am going to kind of show you a few things that I do when I kind of getting the mower ready, and also more specifically I show you some of the things that I use my grass clippings for. This is really the way I found is the best way to keep my lawn in a way that it looks like a lawn. It's very low maintenance and it tends to not die in the middle of the heat and the drought, in spite of the fact that we have a drought and it's Central Texas and we are constantly under water restrictions. So anyway, so enough talking. I kind of go into it enough in the video, so let's jump right into it.
So the first thing that I always look is to make sure that my setting is on the highest setting. So in other words, that my mower is as high up above the grass as I can get it. Now this isn't terribly conventional. Most people like to keep it somewhere in the middle or even lower because they want their lawn to be really short. But particularly in my area in Central Texas, where we've been under drought restrictions for, years now, I really don't want to keep it that short. I want it to be as tall as I can keep it so that it will shade its roots and it will hold moisture better. So it tends to look a little taller, and even after I've mowed, I'll have people come up and ask to mow my lawn, and I always tell them no, because it's exactly the way I want it to be. And somehow my lawn tends to be the only green lawn in the middle of August. Another thing I do with my mower, and by the way, my mower is an electric mower. It's up to you whether you want electric or gas. I prefer electric personally. I suppose there's supposed to be some green aspect to it, but for me, I just find it easier to just plug it in the night before and then it's ready to go the next day. I don't have to mess with tuning it up or going and get gas and putting oil and all the things that you have to do with a gas mower. But anyway, so I like my electric mower. And it's battery powered. This big chunk here is battery, but you plug it in to charge it. Another thing that I like to do is, just to be on the safe side, because I'm very bad about doing it after I'm done mowing, is I like to check to make sure that there's no grass clogging up the spout for the mulch bag. And if you don't have a mulch bag, you would put a chute here where this flap is. But I use my mulch. So I always tip it over. It takes a little oomph. And trying not to get it in the bushes. There we go. And there is a little grass down here, but for the most part, it's not too bad. And the chute is right here and it's cleared. So when I start mowing, the grass will start going in there. Sometimes if I don't check, the hole will be clogged, and then after mowing a big patch, I'll notice it's not sucking up any of my mulch into the bag, and it's because the hole is blocked. So, and it's also good to do it when your grass is not terribly moist. Like first thing in the morning when there's still dew left on the lawn is not a good time to mow your lawn, because it'll tend to clump up on you and clog around the blade and clog up your mulch hole. This is pretty much the second mowing of the season. The first real mowing of the season. And the thing is once spring hits, if you're not mowing every 2 days, then it's going to get tall like this. Unfortunately, I only have the weekends, so it gets tall regularly. have a lot of yard left to mow, but I wanted to go ahead and show you some things that I do with the mulch. So this bag is already about half full, and I've only mowed about maybe a quarter, not even a quarter of the yard. It's just, we've had a lot of rain, and then the sun came out and it just went boom right then and there. So one of the things that I do with my grass clippings is I'll actually put them around the base of my younger trees. This particular one is an oak tree, and I actually got I forget the name of it, I'll have to look it up. If I find the name of it, I'll put it up there. But this particular oak tree is one of two that the city or a nonprofit associated with the city actually gave to people like me who didn't have trees in their front yard, which I don't think you can see it, but about a foot over there, or a couple feet over there, is a kind of a gaping hole still, or actually it's getting more of a gaping hole as the old tree that was in our yard rots away, but it was already dead when we bought the house, so we had it removed. And it's still, the roots underneath are still rotting away. But anyway, I'll go into that in a minute. But I will put grass clippings around the base here, and the grass clippings actually help moisture stay around the base of the tree, which means you don't have to water it as often. And it also kind of keeps the weeds down so that the tree doesn't have to, particularly in its younger state, doesn't have to compete with the grass and the weeds for water, which is always very important in a place like Central Texas, that the plants you want don't have to compete too much with other plants. So I just dump the bag, and I kind of go around it a little bit, and I pretty much will empty the whole bag. It'll condense down quite a bit, so don't think that a thin layer will do. Okay, you're in there, I can see you. There it is. And I will do this until I've got a thick mound over pretty much all of the base of all of my trees. And like I say, it looks like it's a lot, but it really isn't, because this will drop down a good quarter of the height of what it is right now. And there's lots of dead stuff in it too, because this is particularly because this is the first mowing of the year. But also there's other places that I use the mulch that I go over, which I'll show you in a minute. So there's a few dead pieces in there too, which will turn into compost over the course of time, which is really what you want your mulch to do. You don't want to have rubber mulch and crap like that. I mean, yes, that keeps the weeds down and it looks pretty and you don't have to weed as often because it doesn't decompose, but that's also part of the problem. It doesn't decompose. You're not getting good nutrition down to the soil and down to the plant on a regular basis. And it's really just not the best method. And this, by the way, is free. You're already growing it in your yard, so why not use it? Now, the way I do my yard, I realize, is not particularly conventional. And if you live in an HOA, you'll want to make sure you know what their rules are. I specifically bought my house not in an HOA because I knew I wanted to take care of my lawn in a way that was better for the lawn and not better for the pompous nature of the rest of the neighborhood. So that's what I think about that. So if you live in an HOA and you are responsible for your own lawn care, you might want to contact them. Make sure that you can, if you want to try this, that you're actually allowed to within your neighborhood. Because some places will not let you do this. They will ding you, they will fine you, all kinds of crap like that. I'm just not a fan of HOAs. Depends on what you want in a neighborhood, but for me, for the lawn care I want to do, an HOA is just not a good idea. So let me go ahead and show you another thing that I'll use mulch for. Okay, so this is another area of the yard, and this is what I was talking about a moment ago, where there used to be a large tree here, but when we bought the house it was already dead, so we had to have it removed. And its neighbor tree, there were two trees in the yard, it had already been removed. But anyway, so this is where the tree was, and they did grind it down a bit below the surface of the yard. But this part of the yard is still raised up, and it actually creates runoff in other parts of the yard that have created little dead zones that I'm slowly starting to get back. But what I'd like to eventually do is to be able to till this whole area and then spread the dirt around and level it all out so that the dead zones don't want to stay. But the wood itself from the tree wasn't composting fast enough. So I thought, well, I'll just put some of these grass clippings. In the short term, it'll help decompose the wood down there, and in the long term, as it's decomposing itself and helping the wood decompose, it's going to create soil here and there's grass seed and other kinds of seeds in this, because I don't mind weeds in my yard, that this will eventually get seeded at the same time, again, without having to invest anything, and as long as I don't mind that I don't have one variety of grass in my yard, it's perfectly fine. Now this is another area that I'll use my grass clippings. In this particular area, this is one of those low-lying areas I was talking about, and right in here actually, it was so dead because grass couldn't grow here because every time it rained it got bogged down and it was kind of flushed the soil away. So as a result, in the summer it got really dried because I don't water my lawn. Like I say, I want it to be able to survive Texas, which part of that is to keep the grass at a higher level. And so actually, because it got so dry here, it actually cracked the soil I tried to figure out how far down, but it was really cracked, really condensed, and the crack was like about that thick. I mean, when I would be mowing in this area and I'd forget that, either the wheel or my foot would go in that hole, that's how, and it would hurt. Didn't sprain it, fortunately. It wasn't that big of a hole yet, but it was getting there. So I dumped some grass clippings over that hole, and what that's going to do is it's actually going to hold the soil down. Any moisture that gets down there is going to hold the moisture there longer, so that the ground will kind of expand back out. It'll close the hole, and then when I get around to when I'm able to actually level out that one area where the tree stump was, this is one of the areas that's going to see some of that soil, because like I say, this area has been flushed out over and over and over again. So this is another use that I use my clippings for. Okay, and then I guess I'll also, if I don't have anywhere to put my grass clippings, if I've just got that many grass clippings in a given time frame, I'll put it in the compost pile, let it compost with all the fruits and vegetables and that sort of thing. Or I'm also, if you watched my raised tire bed video, I am going to use some of the clippings from the backyard and put those around the edges of the base of the tires, because as you recall, I had kind of dug out a trench to place them in so they'd kind of stay put. So, and there's still parts of the trench that are exposed, so that's going to get some grass clippings, which will break down, turn into soil, and grass will be able to grow there eventually. In the meantime, it'll help keep weeds down in that area. I got to get back to mowing. I'm just going to call that the end of this episode, and I'm also going to try to go ahead and record another episode of me trimming my hedges and telling you how I do that. So if you like this episode, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more episodes, go ahead and click subscribe. You can join me on any of the social media stuff I try to keep up with, which is all linked down below and also at the end of the video. If you're into genealogy, I have a genealogy channel called Monkey in My Tree. It'll also be linked down below, and I have a few social media stuff related to that. But it's part of Random Considerations. It's kind of like an offshoot of it. So I tend to keep up with it on a broader level. And then all of my stuff I kind of bring together on my website, randomconsiderations.com. So that's going to be the end of this episode. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, beautiful spring day. Or fall if you're south of the equator. If you're into genealogy, I have a genealogy channel called There Goes the Camera.